Hi, my name is Harry Dubb, and welcome to my Game Engines Programming final submission. So the project I've been working on is less of a traditional game type, as in it's not really a platformer, nothing like that. Instead, what I wanted to do was look at a core system and see how I could do my best at it. So the system I had a look at this time was dialogue. So I'll play through and show you what I got. Okay, so if we just jump in, I'll have a look. Alrighty, so essentially we have a pretty basic play controller, got some gravity on this little circle collider, and you can roll around and go behind some of the ferns and all that. But really the main focus of this task has been on the dialogue system. So if we go up to this little skull chap over here and hit F, then we can start conversation. So you can listen to him talk, and you can actually speed it up by holding down F. Then we can interact. So who are you? Cool. I don't want the ball to roll away. And then why are you here? Yeah, you and me both. Anyway, so click goodbye and we can go away. So that's essentially the extent of the game got at the moment. But we'll have a look at the in-depths of the coding and see how that all goes. Okay, so let's have a look at just what we're dealing with. So what I went for was a dialogue system that overran kind of most of the dialogue parameters and variables in the game, and a script associated with the individual NPC that we'll be talking to. So as you can see, we've got some of the talking text here. But yeah, so let's actually jump into the scripts themselves. Alrighty, so let's have a look at the NPC one. So this is what's attached to the skull guy. So what we've got here is a lot of variables just dealing with stuff like the name for the skull. We're going to get the background, NPC character, so we know what to move the text box to. We've also got a bunch of string arrays. So this is essentially how we're going to be doing the text. So we're going to have a bunch of text boxes coming up. This is the arrays that we're handling them. Then we've got the buttons for clicking, for choosing, and the dialogue text. And this is choice made. So this is the variable that will be deciding what you've chosen. So essentially what button you've picked. So yeah, if we start, what we're going to do here, so this will find the class, the dialogue system class here automatically. Then we have these three functions. These, depending on what button you press, it will decide whether you have made choice 1, 2, or 0. Go into that a little bit more later. So we have a trigger on the skull boy, and essentially this trigger will tell us, when we're in range of him. So there's a variable in dialogue system which is out of range, which is at default equals false, and so we get that one. We also do choice made 0 just to make sure that none of these have been triggered already when we exit. Anyway, so these this set of code, what this does is when you trigger the collider on the skull guy, what you're doing now here is it will, if the player is touching him, and input key code F, so if you're pressing F, what this is going to do is you're going to get access to name, so you'll get his name, you'll get his sentences pop up, and then you'll also trigger NPC name, which is essentially triggering the script. This is starting the script. These ones will trigger the script for the buttons themselves. So it goes through this loop, and then we get the button 1, button 2, and button 3. Of course, these ones all lead onto the script starting, the function that calls the first dialogue. This one doesn't, because this is the goodbye button. So yeah, let's go into the dialogue system, and this will make a bit more sense. So let's go to the top. Some references at the top, if you'd like to have a look at. They were very helpful indeed. So we've got some variables, the public name text, dialogue text. This is the name of the skull and what he's saying, essentially. The dialog box to UI is the the pink box where everything goes. Letter delay and letter multiplier. This is where things get a bit more complicated. So this is essentially the rate, and this will make a bit more sense later when we look at the coroutines and all that. But this is the rate of the letters coming out individually, and this is the multiplier associated with it when you press the F key. And so this revolves around the F key, which we've got here. Yeah, so we've got a couple of arrays here. Got the dialogue lines array and the responses array. We've also got the buttons and the choices made again, and a couple of bools. And so what we're doing with these is essentially checking out whether certain parameters are ticked off or not. So like whether he's out of range, and whether the dialogue is active. And we've also got audio for that very nice sound clip that is playing over each letter coming up. So on void start, we're going to get the component audio source and make sure the text is blank. Ignore void update, and then so this is the NPC name script that we were looking at here. So this is essentially the start of dialogue. So it's going to make sure, so out of range is false, by default it's true. So now we know we're touching the guy. The dialog box UI is going to be active, so it's going to pop up, and the name text will be associated, so we'll see his name. Then, so if you press F and dialog is not active, then dialog will become active and we'll start the coroutine. So I've written down, thankfully, because I can never remember, but a coroutine essentially is like a function, but it has the ability to pause execution and return control to Unity, but then continue where it left off in the following frame. So this is quite useful for the string array when it's popping out all the letters individually. So I've got a couple of coroutines, but we'll start with this one. So yeah, start the dialogue. Coroutine. So here it is itself. So if the out of range is equal to false, okay, this will make sure that the coroutine stops and the dialogue stops. So if you leave them, the dialogue stops. Makes sense. Cool. So here we go with the arrays. So here's the dialogue length and dialogue lines length. So this is the index, and again we're making sure it's blank to start with. So while this is less than the dialogue length, or the letter is not multiplied, then we'll go into this and make sure we start a new coroutine for when the letter is multiplied. This is where things get slightly confusing. Alright, so let's have a look at the second coroutine here. So this is continuing along from the typewriter effect up here, and it's also allowing us to have multiple sentences. So essentially, as we go through this will give us a typewriter effect, and if the index is less than string length, we can do a multiply effect also. So if we press the dialog input, which is F for us, we get the letter delay times the letter multiplier, the letter delay being 0.2F, I believe, and letter multiplier being 0.5. So in which case, we can play the audio clip, and this will go along at the same speed. If we don't press it, the audio clip will continue regardless. So it means we always have the audio playing along at the same speed. So if we don't continue with that, the dialog ended, break, and then if we press again, we break, yield return 0, and then dialog ended equals false, letter multiplied equals false, and then we get the default blank text again. Then we can drop the dialog, get rid of the box UI, and then we have this out of range function. So for when we are out of range, we go, so if we're out of range equals true, then we get rid of the multiplier, we get rid of active, we stop all coroutines, and we get rid of the box UI, and we make the choice made go back to 0. So, I mean, that's essentially the brunt of it. The real kind of confusing aspect, at least for me, was trying to get the decision in there, which was pretty bloody hard, to be fair. So, all in all, I would say I learned a heck of a lot about coding, for sure. It was very difficult. It's not something I'm naturally inclined to. But I think this was a good start. It was nice to focus on one system, try and find out the intricacies, and learn a lot about, the way code works, essentially, and the kind of object-oriented mentality, ontology, whatever you will. But yeah, so thank you for watching, and see you next time. Cheers.